To you when you came in.
Hey,
Okay, we're live.
Good evening. Just want to welcome everybody to tonight, February 18th, meeting of the Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Becca, do you have the statement from the governor?
Yes, I do. Let me just put it up. Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing a strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed, but will have no option for public participation. To view or listen only, please visit the link posted on our agenda on the Town of Northborough website.
Thank you. So the first order of business is just a roll call so we can make sure that see who's here. Just a aye vote if or present would be great. Virginia Sims,
present.
Becca Meekins, Assistant Town Administrator.
Here.
Miriam Ibrahimi,
Present.
Mary Leach,
Present.
and Lauren Bailey Jones.
Present.
And I am Tim Kalin. Thanks, everybody. I know this is a off-schedule meeting, so I thank everybody for taking the time to attend. I think there was as the stated on the agenda, the two things I'd like to finalize tonight are the survey and then a discussion about medium and long-term goals for the committee. So that way, some members can take some of those offline and do their own research and then bring back their findings to the committee at a later date. I think both of those things would be helpful. And then also have a discussion about inviting other people to attend a meeting in the future. Does anybody have anything off or otherwise that they'd like to discuss tonight? No? Okay. So on the survey front, did everybody have a chance to look at the various surveys that Becca had shared on the Google Doc? Does anybody have any feedback or questions on the surveys as they read through them? Would anything resonate with anybody? Any of the questions in particular, any style? Just looking to get some feedback so that we can work on putting together the final survey and getting that out to participants as soon as we can.
I like that the one that you put together, Tim, is nice and short. What I think might be something great to add or include is a section or an opportunity for citizens to be able to sort of say anything that they want to say to us. So maybe they have a great idea about a future event, or maybe they've seen examples in town of microaggressions that they want us to, start to talk about as a committee and as a town. Things that we might not know that we should be asking a question about. So just sort of like an end of survey opportunity for someone to give sort of final thoughts.
Yeah, well, that's certainly that's a great idea, and I think having some sort of open-ended question at the end so that people can provide whatever feedback they want is a great idea. Instead of trying to ask an open-ended question to get a specific type of feedback, I like the idea of just asking a really open-ended statement type, so people can share their thoughts and ideas on anything they feel is important. Okay. Did you want to go through, did anybody have any other comments on the surveys? What my thoughts on it were to use the questions from Mary and Chica's survey. I thought those were really good questions. And limit our survey, or limit the total survey to around 10 questions that are specific around D&I questions, including a survey ending open-ended question. So 9 kind of 1 to 5 type of scale questions, and then an open-ended question at the end. And then after that, some very simple demographic questions. Age, sex. I thought of asking people which school they live closest to. So you have Proctor, Lincoln, Peasley, and Z. So that way you don't have to ask people where they live, but you get some idea of which area in town they live by asking which school they live closest to. And then I was going back and forth on asking people to identify their race, because there's concern. When I've done this professionally, there's oftentimes concern by people of color that if they identify themselves by race, that their answers can be then traced back to them, because there's so few people of color within the organization or the community or the town, that by digging into the answers in the first part, you get to a point where you can all right, I think it's one of these 3 people, and their concern is to be identified. So I don't want to make people feel I was thinking we could make the race question optional if people want to participate and answer that, make all the demographic questions optional. So that if people are comfortable, and just explain to people, providing this information just helps us better identify where some of our efforts as a committee should be focused.
I think that's a good point. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, we should be a little wary about asking demographic questions, but we can definitely make it something optional, and not we need to know what your race is.
Right.
But we're it would help us understand. It can definitely be an aspect of the survey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would suggest, I like the idea of age range instead of age.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, Virginia. That's what I mean, age range, 18 to 24, 18 to 25, 25 to 35, 35 to 50, 50 to 65, and,
okay.
65 and older.
Super. Okay. I think that's good. I think it will be helpful, because it may identify where we really need to focus our efforts and everything. So I think getting some demographic information would be good.
Yeah.
Another one I think is also may be of interest is how long you've been in Northborough.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I mean, because there's this is why this conversation is important, because there are so many different directions that you can go with this, and all of a sudden you start with a 10-question survey, and then when you get done, you're at 37 questions, and it's your drop-off point is going to be pretty high, and people aren't going to complete the survey. So
I was thinking one of the demographic questions, not in the survey. I like the survey. I like to keep it at the 10 that you have, and the 1 open-ended question. But I think in the demographics, you can just ask, if you're asking age, sex, whatever, you can just say, time in Northborough.
yeah, I think if we use SurveyMonkey or some sort of survey service, I think that you can, like, if it's almost like you put it in two sections, where this is the D&I survey section, and then this is the demographic section, which is optional, but would be helpful if you provided this information.
Yeah.
It's an additional 5 questions that will take you less than 90 seconds to complete.
Yep. Good.
There's one other question I had in mind. So looking at the sample Survey Monkey questions, and I think some of the questions are related, but maybe a question regarding, whether the person taking the survey feels that their cultural beliefs are celebrated in town events. I know that we talked briefly at our last meeting about how, we have a Christmas tree lighting celebration, but, we don't have a menorah in town. And so that might be something that we could start to think about is, are we trying to really include everyone and what they celebrate to be inclusive? There's one question I feel included and respected in our community. That's a little bit more broad. And then there was another one at the end. The town includes people of all backgrounds and beliefs in town activities and events. I feel like that's a little bit different than what I'm trying to say. And number 9 is a really good and important question. I don't know if it's important to make that delineation or if number 9 answers that good enough.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges with putting together a survey is trying to avoid asking questions that you already know the answers for.
Yeah.
So by asking people, just when you were talking through that question, Lauren, you already were answering the question. Like, we already know that the town should look into representing people better around. Like, we know it's much like as we learned from talking with Chief Liver at our last meeting, it's known that the police department needs more female police officers, more people of color on the force, like that. We know that. So, and that's what, again, it's one of that's why these types of conversations are important to talk through these, so that when people, think of questions that for inclusion in the survey, do we already have that information, or is it just already known without the data? You don't need the data to back up that point. And the way I've been thinking about these questions and the use of the responses and the data we get from it is, when we make the presentation to the Board of Selectmen, we can use some of these findings. I'm hoping all of the findings to support the recommendations that we make. Like, we should have a permanent diversity and inclusion committee because the town feels these things. And from the survey, we heard from these people and they told us these things. So I think that's how we tie in the survey findings into our final report.
I just have a comment. So, Tim, I was looking through the questions that you provided, and you go back and forth between I am comfortable, like meaning that the person is answering for their personal experience, and our community or the town. And I'm wondering, like, I feel like it's better for people to be able to speak about their own experiences instead of making inferences about what others' experiences may be. And so I wonder if there's a way to frame those questions that are coming more from the individual's perspective. Because I just worry, like, does our town do I feel, there was a question in here about disabled people. Our community demonstrates a commitment to meeting the needs of residents with disabilities. Well, a person who's not disabled or doesn't know anybody who's disabled probably isn't going to know because they haven't had that experience. So they may say yes, even though that's not the lived experience of someone with a disability. So I've seen, like, I wonder if we can change that question to say something like, I or someone I know has experienced a physical barrier in accessing town hall or town, like, facilities. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yep, 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 that's a very good point. And I know that some of the questions do use I, and then others use the town. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the email, sorry.
I can share this. Do we want to go through the question? I mean, how do we want to do this? We have to come to agreement. I can
Oh,
share
yeah.
the screen, and we can go through each of the 10 questions that you have.
Yeah, if you could share your screen, that would be awesome. I didn't even think of that. That would be great.
All right. Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tim, I don't know, these are your questions, so do you want to just walk us through sort of what your thought process was behind them?
Yeah, so this first one, do people feel that the town leadership values diversity and inclusion? Do people feel that the town is putting effort into this? That's really what I was trying to get at with this question.
I mean, I think this is a good question because you get like it's like an initial feeling of how people feel the town is handling the issue of diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
So, devil's advocate here. So if I weren't on this committee, knowing the passion that we all have for this, I'm going to get the sense that people don't see a lot of leadership on this topic because we don't see it. We don't see it in schools yet. We don't see it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think that's an important part of it because that ties into some of the initiatives that we need to take as a community. Like if you ask people that question, they're like, I didn't even know that the town was thinking about diversity and inclusion. Right. That's an important data point to have because that means we need to do a better job of making people aware.
I think it's an excellent question. And I think it needs to be number one. I think the responses are going to be closer to the last three.
Yes.
My estimation, which is fine. That's why we're here.
Yeah, but those are the things that you want to uncover.
Yep.
So I'm curious if there's an option to, I like the first question. I think we should have that, but I'm curious if some of these questions can have like a second option where people are able to say, how can we improve it? Like if they want to, because I feel like I would love some like detail on why they pick the answers that they do.
Miriam, do you mean like say they disagreed or strongly disagreed,
Right.
then asking like, okay, so what do you want to see?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if SurveyMonkey could do
curious
that.
That's an option.
I thought what we were thinking of is starting out with the survey. And then once we did the survey, I thought we mentioned we would maybe do some focus groups. So for me, you would keep the survey simple and not too long and everything like that. Use the data that you get from the survey, Miriam, to go delve deeper based on the words with, some focus groups.
Okay, got it.
They're also, so if we choose not to go your way, Miriam, one the open-ended question I was talking about at the end, one way I've seen it worded that has helped me as a survey respondent in the past is there anything you'd like to like discuss or, I don't know, bring to our attention regarding any of the previous questions? And then my
Okay,
focus is like, oh yes, actually, I do want to talk about number one. Let me type about it.
Okay, I like that. I think the open-ended question at the end is really important for me because I think if I was somebody who was answering these questions, I would want to like add, like, why did I pick these answers?
And especially if, I took the survey, but then either couldn't go to a focus group or wasn't invited, I at least, my thoughts would be part
Right,
of it.
exactly.
So Miriam, do you think that the open-ended question would then, I guess, give residents an opportunity to respond adequately?
I think if we word it in the way that you were discussing, I think that could be a good way to put it at the end. Like if you would like to add something or explain your answers, word it in that way. That could
Do you have any thoughts or ideas that you would like to share with the town? Or with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee? Something along
Sure,
those
yeah.
lines?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a way to do what you're asking, Miriam, though. I want people to know, just Happy Valley, Oregon, I found out, is in the midst of doing a DEI plan, and I found their survey online. So, so if you see, like, here's one of the questions: I've experienced a barrier, to participating, and then it lists, and then it says here, please explain the barrier and how the city could better your experience. So there's definitely a way for us to ask the follow-up question if someone has a really strong reaction and wants to provide more information on it, because theirs is done on SurveyMonkey too. So, and I think they actually have it after well, no, they don't have it after each question, but a lot of them.
I actually like the idea of having, for some of the questions, I feel like people get to the end, they may have kind of forgotten about the thought that was concerning them that was related to question number one. And by the time they get to the end, they're just going to hit submit and be like, I'm done with this, versus seeing the question, optional, please explain. I don't know. I like what you're saying, Miriam. I really do.
I like the way this survey is like put together. It's not like chaotic where it's like,
Simple.
you have to like tell us why, but it's, if you want to explain what it is exactly, they can like jot down their ideas.
I agree.
Can I just add just one point about this? If you add this to 10 questions and we get 500 people to take the survey, that's 5,000 not unique responses that would have to be, you can't use software to go through open-ended questions and group them. Like somebody would need to go through each individual survey to see where people answered, how they answered, group, like the simple becomes very complicated very quickly. Even with one open-ended question, it adds a layer of complexity to the survey.
But and I completely understand what you're saying, Tim, but I also think it uncovers a lot of information we may not get through a focus group, which
right. And I agree with you 1,000%. But maybe that's something that, I think when we get to talking about medium and long-term objectives, and I know Becca has brought this up in the past, that I think one of the things that we should strongly recommend is to bring in a consultant or a firm that specializes in doing D&I work for a community. And part of their work could be to do a more comprehensive survey because they have different capabilities than the 9 of us have.
Right.
So let them do we do this initial survey. This is the baseline for our initial findings. we make the recommendation to hire a consultant. The consultant comes in a year and a half, 2 years, does a more comprehensive survey. And part of that survey is each individual question having the option for people to provide their feedback, because the consultant firm will be better equipped to handle it.
Right. Do we have any idea what those consultants charge?
It really depends on the scope of the work. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
But I suggest that we go through the survey first and then maybe come up, because we'll never get through the whole survey if we don't let's just plow through it, save our questions, and then, let's have the discussion once going through the survey, please.
Sure.
All right. I like that. Okay, so we're all in favor of question 1. That's a good starting question. So question 2, residents who are different, most others are treated fairly within our town. This gets to the point I essentially speaking on other people's behalf based on their personal, perspective, which I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know what value does that give us. I mean, I think we want to hear what people feel from their, individual perspective, not what they think other people see or feel.
Becca, can you scroll down to one of the I questions?
Yep. Here's one.
All right, I feel included and respected in our community. This addresses the individual, okay? Now, if you think about the results that you get from this, right? If there's a group of people in our community that feels that they are not included and not respected in our community, they're going to respond, disagree, or strongly disagree, right? So hopefully they answer the demographic questions. We get some idea of who that group of people is. Now, if you go back up to the town question, if those same group of people answer this question differently, then something's wrong. Or if that same group of people answers disagree or strongly disagrees, and then everybody that's not in that group answers the other way, we have an education issue. There is a group of people in this town that is different from everybody else, that doesn't feel like they fit together. It's like a puzzle. One reinforces the other.
Okay.
I could see that going both ways. I understand what you're saying, Tim. I also see where, we could find out, from some of the I statements that people don't feel like they're being treated fairly, but then maybe the majority of residents have this, false idea that most people are. So then we learn that, people think people are being treated fairly, but the reality is this, and that's just an example. It's hard when you're creating surveys, because then you have to read into the questions too, right?
Right, and there's methods that you can use that tie all the questions together, so that you don't have to base those connections just on reading through the results. There's mathematical methods that you can use to find the connection between answers.
It looks like the first few are not I questions, and then I think the last ones are. So it's interesting. Maybe we can see the difference between the I statements, and as Virginia said, as we go through them, just sort of see the difference.
Right.
Can I just ask what the
Number 2 could also read, I believe residents who are different I believe that residents who are different from most others are not treated fairly. It could be an I one. Just rephrase.
Well, let's go through the rest of the questions and we'll see if they all tie in.
Okay.
our town is committed to diversity and inclusion. This is question 1. I'm not sure what. I see strong leadership support of the town's value, and then our town is committed to diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, so we can
I-
take, it's repetitive. We can take 3 out.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna get rid of 3. People of all cultures and backgrounds are expected here.
I like Virginia's idea of if we really truly want someone's belief, saying an I believe statement.
But I
do
think
like that.
you want to get people's, not only their own personal feelings, but how they feel about the community as a whole. And I think those two things are separate.
I agree completely. I'm looking at a survey that the town of Andover did, and there's a mix between talking about what you feel personally versus does the town address. It's an equal mix, and I think that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So, well, Tim, you have the expertise in surveys. So it sounds like you've used that expertise to put together the survey to actually support our individual views plus residents' views. Am I
Yeah,
reading correctly?
and oftentimes when you design surveys, when you really look at them, like a 10-question survey may really only be asking you 2 questions.
Okay.
They just ask it in 10 different ways. And each question is designed to find flaws in your previous answers. I was talking to Becca earlier, like you go to your doctor and your doctor says, how many drinks do you have per day? 0 to 1, 2 to 5, 5 to 10, like how many drinks do you have per day? And you say 0 to 1. And then the next question is, how much money do you spend per month on alcohol? And you say $300. Well, you're obviously drinking more than 1 drink a day because you spend a lot more money on alcohol. So you'd want to make sure that all the answers are congruent.
Or you have really expensive taste.
Or you give lots of gifts.
Yes. I need friends like that.
All right. All right, so one question for people of all cultures. Do we like this question?
Yeah, I think this, to me, this is one of the key questions. It's simple, it's direct.
Yep. Okay, now we're getting into the I feel included.
I like number 5.
Yeah. So this, to me, this is another one that was really key to me.
I agree.
That's good.
And then Becca, to your point on question 7, if there's a way to change the point of view on that so that it's more in line with what you were mentioning before.
It said, I believe our community demonstrates a commitment to meeting the needs of residents and with disabilities. It could be an I question.
Well, I actually think to get Tim, we would need, and then we would need another question. I have experienced difficulty, resources made available to Northborough residents. I mean, isn't that the idea? That you get like a broad brush view, and then you get the personal experience, and the expectation is that the people who say that the broad brush experience is negative will also say that they personally have had a negative experience.
But how do you feel about if we were to ask, due to a disability, I feel I have been limited in participation in the community?
Remember town meeting, Kid Tim?
I do. I do.
Due to a disability.
Then if I didn't have a disability, I wouldn't answer that question. That's what
And
it
that's fine. And that's fine.
I don't know, I don't, it doesn't, that's, the way that question phrase doesn't sit well with me, but I don't know why.
I still think we want to know the perception. Do people feel that we're not committed to people who have disabilities?
Well, that's a good, what about, do you feel our community demonstrates a commitment to meeting the needs of residents with disabilities?
Yeah.
I like that wording. I want to go back to Miriam's point though. I mean, as I may not have a physical disability, but I know people who do. And so I wear that lens constantly as I'm walking, as I am always thinking, oh, if, my friend in a wheelchair couldn't get here. I always wear that lens, but I don't think everyone does. So I could respond to this. And I think if I had that chance, to write more like, a wheelchair could not access XYZ. Maybe if we don't ask for all questions for further comments or suggestions, this would definitely be one, I think, for either.
But could we not, I mean, just taking everything in consideration, could we not say I've seen some surveys where it says, please add your comments below or whatever to different, couldn't that one statement could refer to the whole, any one question rather than putting it throughout the survey?
Yeah, I think we should stick to just one open-ended question for comments and people to expand their thoughts below. I think below every question is too much.
Would you be able to do this electronically, Tim, to gather all the data?
Yeah, it all gets collected by SurveyMonkey, and then you just download a file that I can use in other tools.
Will it be able to capture the comments as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So we go with I feel our community demonstrates a commitment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was one question that I was going back and forth with.
What are you getting at here? Like what do you, I mean, things in common is very
Right.
vague.
It's vague and it's broad. Yes. That's
So,
why I was going back and forth with it.
Yeah. Like if you're trying to get at, honestly, I don't know I mean, I guess you would, people who worry that they don't have things in common, they would see others and not see themselves, or not have shared experiences or like experiences, but I don't know how that gives us different information than we would have already collected above.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I was going back and forth on this because it was
Yeah.
in my head. I know what I'm trying to get at, but now that as I read it again and put myself in the survey taker's seat, it's too vague.
All right, so we'll give it an 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think this is important.
So this is different from I feel the town represents my beliefs and backgrounds in events. This is just, I feel included in any event.
Correct.
I like that, 9 is more that broad brush, Becca, that you were talking about. And then 10 is really more talking about the person. I feel welcome at town-sponsored events and activities.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite get to my question before, but Tim, like you said, I think we already know the answer.
Okay. So what is our, what's our open-ended question? Is there anything you would like the DNI committee to be aware of related to any of the above? Like what?
Yeah, I think if it's something like, do you have any other thoughts or ideas that you would like to share?
Or please identify 1 to 2 ideas that you feel would help make our community more diverse and welcoming.
Yeah, I think if I put myself in the seat of a survey taker, like if something in the survey rubs me the wrong way, like I'm going to write about it. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like if I don't feel included, I'm going to share that information.
I think that some people would. I'm still latching on to Mary and Miriam's idea earlier of, and maybe it's because I'm guilty of this, but by the time you reach the end of a survey, it doesn't matter if it's 2 questions or 300 questions, you just click done or submit. And I know it was my original idea to add an open-ended question. I do really like the format of the Happy Valley survey. And I think not making it mandatory. I know that we could potentially collect a lot of data, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If we don't do anything with that data, I don't think it, because of time constraints, I don't think that's the end of the world. But if we have at least, we can read through it. I mean, it sounds like it's a lot of work, but most people are going to write like 1 sentence if they're going to write anything at all, or they'll just choose 1 or 2 questions to really write about.
Wouldn't that also?
Also, on the other hand, a lot of people I know, they just don't take, 1, don't take surveys, 2, if they take them, they just do as quick, responses, and they don't really give any real meaningful information. So I think, I don't want us to get so that we don't do the survey done and get it out and start collecting some data. Anything we get is going to be worthwhile, I believe. And then we've got to do the next step as to the focus groups and all the different things we've talked about.
I think any open-ended question is going to add value, especially if you bring a consultant in down the road. It's going to give them a head start with information they can read up on to be more effective for us as a community.
Honestly, I think if we're making this survey right now, we're sending it out to people. Why shouldn't we have like more open-ended questions or like a section after each question to explain more, I feel like?
I think it's a question of time and resources. Because at the end of the day, if we, like Tim said, if we get 500 responses and we want to make meaningful use of all of those individual comments that people put in, that means, like Tim said, reading them all, coding them all. You have to find the common themes in all of them and then code those themes so you can tell how many times they were repeated, so you can show 50% of respondents referred to housing in question 1. We have a housing, we need to focus on housing, but that takes a lot of time and effort. So, I mean, Lauren, I know you said that we don't have to use the information. I worry that if we collect the information from people and then we tell them, well,
We didn't use it.
it was too much, so we didn't do anything with it, that's just going to make people.
I guess what I really meant by that is, and for my master's thesis, I did exactly what you just said, Becca. I collected qualitative data, probably 40 hours worth of transcripts and did the whole coding. It's a lot of work. But I also do surveys like this as a teacher every day, and I have over 100 kids, and I might ask them 5 or 6 open-ended questions. So all of a sudden, that's 600 questions a day. I have to just scroll through and look at their responses. And there's something to be said also about just being able to, I guess, collect those quotes and qualitative data. And I'm thinking back to like the school committee surveys that we've looked at, like when I was on the start time task force. We didn't do any coding, but respondents were able to give their opinions and ideas. And then we were able to go through and collect some of those quotes that we sort of saw repeating. We didn't necessarily say, oh, 50% of respondents said this, but we said this is one of our main themes. I don't know. I'm going to be with Miriam for this. I really think that would be a missed opportunity. I think that we need to put this to a vote.
Can I just make one additional comment? I think the other point to consider is what is the purpose of the survey? What are we going to use the data for? And to me, what we're going to use the data for is tangible evidence for improvements that need to be made in town. And we can't provide a 50 item list to the Board of Selectmen for things to address in town. Like when we get done with this, like there's going to be 3 to 5 things that we present to the Board of Selectmen, just because in reality, that's probably more than can be taken on at once. So we may ask people, and they may share wonderful ideas about things that we can do and areas that we should focus our time. And it's going to be too much information. We're just not going to be able to use that to make meaningful changes. I think by asking one open-ended question at the end, that gives people the option to share any thoughts or ideas they have in a concise manner that will make it a little bit easier to analyze the information. And I'm also concerned too that if you add an open-ended aspect to every question, you will get people that will just look at it and not take it.
So I guess I don't know. I'm having real thoughts about this. And I don't even know what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, but I do know I've been in this town almost 30 years, and I don't think we never heard the words diversity, inclusion, never seen anything about it, and we never did anything, so I'm wondering, almost sometimes feeling like there are people who will not even may not value taking the survey. I know things have been different in 2019 and 2020, but it's just something that I don't think anybody ever even mentioned during my time here in town until recently. And I know I've been talking to them about, getting some people in the police department, getting some people in the different departments that, to change the way we look. So my thoughts are, if we want to do the survey, let's at least get the survey out and see what kind of response we're going to get. And then we talked about, and I keep going back to the focus groups, we talked about who could possibly be focus groups and everything like that. I'm just leery that this is not going to be what we think it's going to be if we bog it down, make it too cumbersome. People are just, they won't care. I don't know. I might be smoking pot, but my thoughts.
All right. Well, let's take a vote.
Do
We have
need
the
a motion? Or
Excuse me?
do we need a formal motion, or are we not that formal? I don't know.
I just, let's,
Let's do a straw poll. Because I have a feeling it's not going to be a decisive vote, so.
Well, I think,
Since there's 6 of us.
yeah, I think it's clear. I mean, I think there are 3 people who feel we should do, I get the sense 3 feel we should really put those questions throughout, and 3 feel keep it simple, stupid, and get it out. So we may just end up with a tie.
Well, let's just all say maybe what we think, because and we do have a quorum, I believe, aren't we? 9 people, and there's 6 of us here. So
yes.
Well, yeah, we have a quorum, but it could end in a split vote. But I think we should all, why don't you start, Lauren?
I mean, I made my thoughts known, but I have one more point to make. Are you ready? Becca, if you could just go to the Happy Valley Community Survey, just so we can see it.
Yeah.
I think it's your 3rd tab. Yeah, there it is. So this one I know is longer. I think there's 28 questions versus 10, but that little gray box at the end of every question, to me, doesn't feel like it's making it feel longer. And to me, I see it and I'm like, oh, okay. We could even put the word optional, please explain further if you would like. And me as a survey respondent, if I feel strongly about something, I'm going to type it there. And if I don't, I'm just going to keep going. It's still 10 questions. It's not now suddenly 20. It's still 10. So that's just sort of my final point. So yes, this is the model that I would like to see. That's my thought anyways.
Okay. Thank you. Mary?
I agree with Lauren. I completely understand your concern with gathering the information and then people having the thought that we didn't execute, we didn't do anything with the information that we gathered, but this is a process that's going to take years. And I think it's a good place to start, is gathering as much information we can get in one shot. I mean, if we're going to send out a survey, my thought is, let's get as much information as we can in a simple format, not overwhelming, 10 questions max. I mean, we could even cut it down to, 8 questions, but I'm on the side of getting as much information as we can get. And I would have no problem with that. And I'm more than happy to help sort through the answers and read the responses. If we have 9 people on our committee, can we not all get together and go through the answers and responses and kind of sort through them? And again, it's not going to happen this year maybe, but I think it's a great place for us to leave things with, okay, this is all the information that we collected. Let's present it with some recommendations. And then the next step would be, if we can hire a consultant, here's some excellent data that we already have at our fingertips. It's already been collected in one survey. That would be those are my thoughts. And I understand what all of you are saying. I completely understand that it is a lot of information that's going to come our way. We do have limited resources, but I also feel if we're going to do this, my feeling is let's get as much information as we can get.
Yep, I 100% agree with what Mary just said. Nothing else to add. I agree. If we need more help going through the surveys, I mean, we're here. I'm happy to help.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you both. Becca?
Yeah, so I have a few concerns. My first concern is obviously about the possibility that we get an incredible amount of data that we don't have the ability to sort through and adequately utilize. And then I worry that we've asked people for real valuable personal experiences and we've done nothing with them. So that's my first concern. The second thing I worry about is, I think long-term, the direction that this group is going to go is that we're ultimately going to recommend to the board that they hire a consultant to do a DEI plan. And I do think that that's the most efficient use of our time as a committee, is to consultant to get to the end goal. And I don't want us to spend lots of time trying to sort through survey information when a consultant's going to come in and they are going to want to do another survey. They're not going to just take our data. They're going to want to work with us to develop a new survey and put it out, use different methods. So I don't want to duplicate efforts unnecessarily. Questionnaire, and I'm looking at this question, and my internet connection is unstable. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Going in and out.
No?
Yes,
You can, okay. I'm sorry. So I look at this question, right? And please explain the barrier and how the city could better your experience. And I think it's valuable, but again, I think you could get 100 different responses to this question, and none of them might not be the same. None of them may be the same. And like Tim said, we already have a limited amount of time, and we really don't have, we have to provide recommendations to the board in a year, which now is 9 months. And I just worry about us getting too pigeonholed in the survey information and not being able to utilize our time and resources anywhere else. So I mean, I like the idea of just like getting an initial snapshot. Here's where people are at, and then from these 10 questions, it informed our work from here. So a lot of people had concerns about disabilities, so we focused on ADA. We think you should apply for this grant, you should do a self-evaluation study, you should have, so like, but like explain the barriers, I've said enough. I think you know where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Becca. Virginia?
I've said it, I'll say it again. I think your survey is short, it's to the point, and maybe it's because, I'm not a survey person who gets into surveys. I will check the boxes, but I'm not going to really get into a lot of information. Plus the fact, I go back to the document, Tim, that you drew up and you presented to the Board of Selectmen. We had, in my opinion, stated what we really were going to do. I think that document carries a lot of weight. If we want to do a survey, I think it should be just a short survey. I do think it's important that we have focus groups. So I would say do the survey with one question at the end of the question, open-ended question. If anybody wants to say anything, that would be that's my take.
Okay. Thank you, Virginia. For the sake of compromise, if we did not have an open-ended question at the end and had the option to add comments, but limited those comments to like 25 or 50 characters.
Can you do that on SurveyMonkey?
I believe you can limit the word count, yes.
Okay.
I would be amenable to that.
I like them. And I like the compromising, Tim. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is that what, because I agree with you, Virginia. To me, the most important thing is to get the survey out. As I said earlier, my intention for the survey is to be able to use the data to support some of the recommendations we make to the Board of Selectmen. So the sooner we can launch a survey, the sooner we can get it out, the sooner that people can take it, the sooner that we can close the survey and start analyzing the data, the better. So if we add those, don't have open-ended questions at the end, have places for comments, and limit the word count for those, that is how we'll move forward.
And if you need, if we need to have maybe not a formal subcommittee, but just, several of us sort of in charge of looking at the data, I'm happy to volunteer for that.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how,
Yeah.
what it looks like when it comes in to make that point at the end. Okay. So I'm sorry, Becca, go ahead.
Are all of these questions going to have? I mean, box on all of them. Do we want to pick and choose which ones have boxes?
If it's okay with the committee, when I go through the survey, I will add the option to add comments to the questions that make the most sense to have options, because to Becca's point, some of them just don't. Is that fair? Do I have enough
Yeah.
trust to be able to do that?
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Can I?
Yeah.
I just want to ask one more question about the survey. There are no questions related to public safety and people's experience directly interacting with public safety. Do we feel like that's an important question to ask?
Yes, I agree. I do think that's a question we should ask.
Yeah, since we took a couple questions out, we can certainly add one or two, right? Did we
Well, I
take,
don't know. I want to think.
Took one out.
we took just one?
We took two out.
One out.
We took two questions out.
Yeah.
Which two, Tim?
3
question-
and 8.
Yeah.
So we took out 8. I
Yeah,
thought
that's
we
what I have
were
too.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we took out 3 because 3 is repetitive.
Okay.
Given our conversation with Chief Liver, I think that would be a good type of question to add.
Happy Valley had questions related to public safety. Let me see what they were. Yeah. Okay. So I have had experiences with police. And then you could say, please share your experience with police.
Yeah, honestly, my, I'm sorry, Becca, if I'm stepping on your toes.
No, go ahead.
My concern with asking questions specifically about the police department is then it's the survey is targeting the police department, or not targeting, sorry, singling out the police department. We don't ask any other questions about any other departments in town. And that probably will not sit well. If I'm a police officer, I would not be happy about that. Why are you specifically pointing me out? I know that there's been issues in other parts of the country, but not here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't ask any other questions about any other department in town except for the police department.
Yep.
It just to me, it just sends the wrong message.
I agree.
If you want to ask generally about safety without mentioning police or any department, that's different. I'd be very opposed. And I probably wouldn't include it.
What if we said public safety officials?
That's police.
Is it police, fire, emergency management?
Do you think we're
If
going
if you're an average citizen, it's police.
to?
I mean, see, this is where I struggle, because I want us to be direct, and I want us to, I mean, I don't want to beat around the bush. But I think public safety is a place where we know we have to focus our efforts.
Well, to your point, Becca, yes, we do. We know that. So do we need data to back that up? Like we already know that. I don't think safety is the issue, though.
I agree. I don't think it is either.
We need the police, and the Chief Liver talked about that. The police department is well aware of the fact that they need better gender representation and better minority representation on the police department. They know that. We
Right.
know that. The community knows that. Like, I just don't, it comes back to the question of,
It's
are we
not,
collecting information that we don't know?
yep.
Now, if you were to ask people, do you feel safe or do you feel targeted in the community because of your background? That's a whole, that's what I thought you were getting at. That's a whole different question.
Where is the question on age?
I'll add though, those are easy. Those aren't in this. Those are just demographic questions. There'll be nothing that you haven't seen before.
No. I'm just saying how, so that we don't go over a certain number of questions.
Well, we'll have the 8 to 10 questions that are the actual survey, and then the optional part, which are the demographic additional 5 to 6 questions.
Okay.
Like, I think there's certain, it's, I think it's important to capture the, I don't know the right word, collective feeling of the community about diversity and inclusion. And I think safety is kind of a curveball. And I think if you want to get, like, I think that would be something for consultants, because they would know the right questions and how to frame them so that people don't feel singled out, or what's the right way to frame questions so people feel comfortable answering them.
But we know that from, go ahead, Becca.
No, I was just gonna say, if we don't feel like it's something we want to tackle, I'm fine with that. I'm not, I was just asking the question because the people who we really want to hear from are people who feel marginalized, or who feel like they're not represented, or, I mean, those are the voices that are going to mean the most to us when we're looking at how can we
Becca, you're breaking up.
real
Becca, sorry.
change.
to hear you.
And unfortunately,
Becca, if you turn off your
can you hear me
camera,
again? I'm
I
sorry.
can hear you better.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, sorry about that. My internet's really bad tonight. I lost my train of thought. I guess what I'm saying is that I think maybe Tim is right that we leave this to consultants, but I do think that down the road, police are going to become the focus of, at least part of the focus of whatever discussion is being had. Maybe not because there's any incident in Northborough itself, but just because of the national, the conversations that are being had on a national level. But I do think, Tim, now that you've said that probably
Yeah, I think
better
that's
to
out.
leave
I think that's outside the scope of this committee.
that. Okay.
All right, so I will put together the 8 questions with the option to leave comments after 4, 5, 6 of the questions. I'll make sure that they're included with the appropriate ones. I'll add the demographic questions, and what day is it? Thursday. I will have that done no later than Monday, and I will send that a link out to the other committee members, and we just need to just be organized in how we post it. That's all. Becca, if I share the link on Monday And then as an example, if Mary were to share it on, say, Northborough Moms, if Mary was just to send an email to the committee saying, I shared it on Northborough Moms, that's taking, I just don't want us to be posting it multiple times in single locations. That's not, I'm just concerned about open meeting, that's all.
I don't know how, I don't see why that would be a violation of open meeting.
Okay, all right. So why don't we just do that then? I'll share the link on no later than Monday. Hopefully I'll have it to everybody before Monday, but by Monday at the latest. And then share it where you feel it's appropriate to share it. Like, I really don't think there's an inappropriate place to share it outside of the town, because we just want to get people to provide the feedback. And Mary, if you want to share it with the community advocate, feel free to do that.
Do we want to agree on the introduction, like the 2-line introduction that kind of prefaces the survey, and it's so that it's consistent, or not necessary?
And I think the question, what's the timing? Are we going to agree on the timing?
I would keep the survey open for 2 weeks initially, and see how many responses we get, because you can always extend it. The challenge, like if you keep it open for 3 months, literally nobody will take it, because everybody will kick the can down the road. So I think if you do it for 2 weeks, and if after 2 weeks we have 7 responses, then we extend it for another few weeks. If we have, on the other side, if we have 1,000 responses and we want to extend it another 2 weeks because people are participating, we can also do that. It's just, my concern is that, like I said, if you make that initial period too long, people will just ignore it because it's not immediate.
So you're talking about getting out Monday for 2 weeks.
Yeah, or 2 weeks, it doesn't have to be like 17 days or something like that, like.
Are we going to put that in our introduction to the survey? Back to my question, do you want us to be kind of consistent with our message that precedes the survey? You know what I'm saying?
Becca, can you bring up the survey that Mary and Chica did?
I have it here. So we had written, what does diversity and inclusion in our community mean to you? This is a question that the newly formed Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee would like to answer. We want to hear from you and use your input to help shape our plan of action. We're asking. Yeah.
Like, I would just use that. I thought that was great.
Okay.
Is that cool? Does that resonate with everybody?
That's fine.
I like it.
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay.
Is there, I know that we had talked about potentially seeing if there's a spot on the town website to also put this. Sometimes there's announcements like on that main page. I know, it's only for really big things like the COVID vaccine. So I don't know if there is a spot on the town webpage to put this. Maybe we have a page. I haven't seen that we have a page listed yet on the town website, but if we do, we could put it there as well.
Yeah, I'll leave that to Becca.
Tim, in terms of the community advocate, do you want Liz to just write a small article, referring people back to where to find the link for the survey? How should we structure that?
If Liz is really good at what she does, she does a great job with the community advocate. So I'm confident that she'll know how to proceed with
But
writing.
what is your preference? What would you like to see?
She could just put a link in, or referencing a website in the article.
Okay. Okay.
And if she has any questions or needs any help, she can, and if you don't have the answer, she can contact me as well.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. I think we have a plan.
Great.
Survey world, here we come.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Thank you, Becky.
So the other thing I wanted to discuss is if anybody had any ideas on any medium and long-term objectives that they would like to see the town or the community take on. We've talked about bringing in a consultant. I think that's goes without saying. I think that's going to be a very important part of it. I think also making the D&I committee a permanent committee within the community, I think is an important recommendation to make. There was the short-term things that we talked about, the incorporating multicultural events on town common, properly celebrating different events for different cultures throughout the year. Virginia has brought up training in the past. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle. And I didn't know what other ideas people had. If anybody had any other ideas.
I mean, I want to go back to Virginia's idea about the focus groups as well. I think that would be another great avenue to collect information. Yeah, the way I sort of read this on the agenda is like objectives for us to do during, our tenure as a group, to then say, what do we need to do in order to then go to the Board of Selectmen and make our recommendations? So any way that we can collect information. So I really like Virginia's idea.
Yeah, and I think I'm sorry, I apologize if that was less clear than it needed to be. My idea or thought on that was, we agree, like, training is important. We need to have training, and there's two aspects to training, I believe. I believe there's internal training for town staff in all departments, and then I also believe there's external training for residents to participate in, and that may be a speaker event at the library, having access to D&I training courses at the library free to charge for residents. So I think there's two different buckets, and they're very different buckets. So when we make the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, it can't be, we need external training and internal training. We need external training. This is who we recommend they hire. This is the cost. These are the different cost levels, or here are two options or three. Like, we just can't dump the vague external training onto the board. So what we need to do as a committee is, all right, we agree that training is an important part of it. Are there one or two members of this committee that want to take on that part and research and find people that can come in and conduct the training and reach out to them to get ideas on cost? And that's what I was trying to get across with the agenda.
That makes more sense. Thank you, Tim.
other area, I think, and already sort of started on that is helping with recruiting for diverse candidates. And I think Fred Liber has already reached out to my husband, Fred, to help with that. But we maybe just have I'm not sure how we want to get involved in that, but that would be another avenue. Not heard anything from the fire chief and not sure what his thoughts are or anything like that, but that could also be a possibility to reach out to him as well.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up when we talk about people coming to the committee. I spoke with the fire chief, and he is going to be attending our meeting on April 1st.
Okay, April Fool's Day.
Yes. So, so that we'll get his have the same type of conversation that we had with Chief Live or with Chief Parenti.
We should have John as well.
Yeah, I haven't broached that with Becky yet. That's but I did go through before we get there. At our next meeting, the representative from the YMCA is going to be joining us to have a discussion about that. I also think that is an important recommendation to make to the board. And I'm not quite sure how to present it yet or how the town would be involved, but the town providing a way for residents to volunteer to help other communities that may be less advantaged than Northborough is. And I don't know if that's just a simple resource page on the website. Like the Y does a lot of great work in like cities and in different communities. So if there are volunteer groups that people from Northborough can go and help other communities, I think that would be helpful for some of the other issues or challenges that I see in town.
So I had a thought, and this is Black History Month, and we haven't done anything for Black History Month. Maybe we could put out an article of some sort. I actually saw a trivia quiz that was actually on the computer once you sign in, but would we want to do something in recognition of Black History Month?
Absolutely.
I think that's a great point. Yeah.
Let me see what I can find.
Okay.
And Virginia, are you talking about recognizing it this month or having it be one of our short-term or long-term goals is to sort of create this? Both? Okay.
If we could do something, it's short notice because we haven't talked about it. If we could do something this year, but maybe more the following year, and then thinking ahead, March is Women's Month. So, maybe just thinking about some of these things as we go along to see if there's something we could do, whether it's just an article in the paper or recognition on the board in town.
Yeah, we could do that. Or yes, I agree that is something that should be part of our recommendations.
So does someone take that as an action item since there's only a week left in the month or 12?
Yeah, that's why I'll look at work tomorrow to see what types of information I can find for some sort of article or appropriate thing to send out from the Diversity and Inclusion Committee recognizing Black History Month.
We did I'm sorry, go ahead, Miriam.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm happy to write something for the paper if we're thinking about writing something.
Sold.
From us. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
we did like a quote by a Black historian up on the thing in town. Maybe, you know, Martin Luther King or
Amanda Gorm.
all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah. Really powerful people out there. Positivity.
Yes. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together for our next meeting a list of some of the medium and long-term things that we've discussed. At our next meeting, we can agree upon those and then assign those to members to start digging into. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
And then,
did we mention the library last time? I had it in my notes, but I don't know if we brought it up. But just involving the library and
yeah,
community affairs.
I think the library will be a very important resource for us going once we start getting into this.
Okay.
Is there a librarian yet? Have they hired
Yes.
anybody? They have? Okay, good.
Yes. So today, and I left my notes at my office, but today I went through the boards and committees that we have in town to look for people that we should invite just from our own boards and committees to come and speak to with us. One was the Community Affairs Committee, asking somebody from the Community Affairs Committee to come in and speak with us. They really, they focus on like social events. I always get them confused with the Cultural Council. I believe that
They do events in town, like town cleanup.
yeah, they do the tree lighting, right? I always get
They
them
do
confused with
the
somebody
tree
else, and it's shame on me, but
They also did a trolley. They do the concerts in the park
yeah.
as well. So they
Sure.
do things to bring the committee together. And so, you know, so when they were doing the concerts, they'd have a band and people could bring their picnic lunches and everything at Field 135. So it was really, their charter is to try to engage the town.
Yeah, so I think that having someone from the Community Affairs Committee come in and talk with us would be important. The Cultural Council, somebody from there. Financial Planning Committee. I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation from Financial Planning Committee, just so there's a budgetary concern or a budgetary discussion that we're going to need to have with recommendations that we make, and does the Financial Planning Committee need to be part of that? Again, just ideas, just library trustees, having somebody from the library trustees, the Master Plan Implementation Committee. I mean, I'm a member of that, but having somebody besides myself from that coming in and speaking with us. Parks and Recreation. I think that would be a great person. And those were the ones that I thought. There was other ones that I had question marks about. But those seem to be the ones that made, or at least made the most sense to me.
I would add Council on Aging or the Senior Center Director.
Yes, yes, yes.
The Housing Authority, or someone from the Housing Authority, and the school committee, or maybe, I think we've talked about this before, but is there a diversity group through the schools? Yeah, okay.
So I'm on the school committee, and they have a board. They're basically doing their own audit of the school district, and there is definitely interest. I know that there's a subcommittee that is talking about community partnership. So they actually created their own survey. However, it's going to students. So their focus really is asking students about their experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion within the school system. But it would be really interesting to talk to them as well once they get their survey results in, which I did ask for, and they said that they would be able to share their takeaway messages.
I just want to make one comment on the school committee and the regional school committee. I thought of both those things, but those are actually outside the scope of what this committee's charged with doing. We can speak to them, but there's nothing that we're going to recommend that the school committee needs to do. So it doesn't, as much as I would enjoy talking with them, it really doesn't add any value or information or actions that we can take as a committee to impact those whole separate entities. So that's.
I think that maybe the one value could be is discussing those partnerships between the community and the school. And I know that that's something that a lot of the high schoolers who are on the committee have talked about, is getting out into the community, hosting sort of like a TED Talk series or, different events. So I do see that could be a potential partnership. However, you're right. The school has their own way that they operate as well.
Yeah, and that I would love to have that conversation. I think if we were to make if the D&I committee were to become a permanent committee, I think after that, that is one of the next things that we should take on.
So one of the speakers, Tim, I can't think of his name. He has the CPI funding, where they can do different things because it's CP. I think it's CPI, and he gives out money at the town meetings for capital, for different things. I can't think of his name. Some of the money that comes back to the town goes to him, and he gives funding, like he'll do a secretary for the historical society. He does the housing, fair housing kind of thing, contributions. I think he would be a good person to partner with, because once I'm losing, and I don't think you know who I'm talking about.
I don't.
Oh man. At town meeting, before we close the town meeting, he comes up because he has like so many dollars that he's gotten back to the town, and he uses it to do things in town. I'll get his name and I'll send it to you, because I think part with him is good, because he might even be willing. We might be able to get some money from him to do some of the things we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a guy at town meeting walking around handing out money, I want to know who he is.
Yeah, at the very end, I think it's CPI. Okay, I'll ask, and I'll send you his name.
Okay.
And an organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those were the internal boards and committees that I would recommend that we extend invitations to.
Tim, when you say extend invitations, meaning bring them here to talk to them, or do you want us, individually to go offline, have discussions, and then bring our discussion back here?
No, I think having them attend a meeting. I mean, obviously, if you have personal conversations with them, that's great, but I think it's more important to have them be part of one of these meetings so that the public can see them and see the conversations.
So do we want to, I know that the YMCA is up next at our next meeting in 2 weeks. Are we meeting every 2 weeks now? Is that decided, or we're not sure?
Still not sure. It's really on, I wanted to get the survey
Hmm.
completed, and we didn't get a chance to wrap that up at our last meeting, and I didn't want to wait a whole nother month to get that wrapped up. So that's why I wanted to have this meeting in between. I am more than comfortable having a meeting every 2 weeks. That works for me. I think the more that we meet, the better it is. But I'm also comfortable keeping my schedule flexible where we have set in stone meetings once a month, and if needed, we schedule something in between. So I'm comfortable either way. Becca, I don't know if there's any sort of rules, regulations around requiring boards and committees to have, set schedules, or flexibility is allowed. And I don't ask that to put you on the spot for an immediate answer, but in either one, I am more than comfortable with. So
The only limitation for scheduling for us is the availability of the Zoom licenses. So
yeah,
on that, it's, I know this date, the Thursday that we currently have scheduled does not work for one of our members at all.
yeah,
He hasn't been able to attend since the first meeting, and it's been this. So I do think we need to look at scheduling again. At least if we're gonna go bi-weekly, which if we feel like we need to, or just need to have the opportunity to have that second meeting if stuff comes up, I think we need to look at having it on a different day so that, more of our membership can at least attend 50% of the meetings. And if we can come up with another date and time that works for folks so that he can attend, I think that would be good. So I'll take a
yeah.
look at the schedule again and send out some more dates. But I think for now, we'll just hold the 4th. And then stand by for more information,
Okay.
if that
Yeah,
works.
if you could do that, that would be great.
Is there someone that, for whenever our next meeting is beyond our March 4th meeting, we should get in contact with to try to put on the books, if we know that we're going to have an April meeting, we could at least invite someone to come.
Yeah, Chief Parenti from the fire department's already
Oh, great.
booked for April 1. So,
Excellent.
so we have that on already scheduled. And then once we determine what day and how often, then we can proceed with extending invitations to other boards and committees.
I do think if we want to get through everybody that we've just mentioned, we're either going to have to bring 2 people in at one meeting, or we are going to have to meet.
Yes. And we don't have to bring in all those people either. That was just a laundry list of people that I think would be appropriate to ask, which doesn't mean that, I do think like, community affairs is an important one to bring in, to have a conversation with. Council on Aging, I think is important. Not that any one is more important than the other. I just think for the sake of impact on the community, I think some have more reach than others for what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
All righty.
Great. I do think it would be great to have Hamilton involved. I have felt badly that we haven't been able to include him, and I'm sure he has some very valuable input for all of us.
Yes, I agree. I agree. All right. Anybody have anything else?
His name is Campbell. I'm getting there.
One piece at a time?
One piece at a time. It's slowly coming back, but I will send you his name and his function. I think we really should partner with him.
All right, once you find his name, send it to me, and then,
I will send it to you.
all right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. So just a roll call vote. Becca,
Aye.
Lauren,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Miriam,
Hi.
Virginia,
Aye.
and I, Tim Kalin, and I. Thank you very much, everybody. I very much appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, we'll have the survey ready to go next week.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Great.
Perfect.